Hi everybody, and welcome back to part 6 of Luck of the Gnome, the bench pillow. This is really exciting because we're going to get to put the whole thing together tonight. I'm very excited about getting mine put together. Um, we're going to do this in sections, and I have all my sections kind of laid out on my table here, but I wanted to talk a little bit about the embellishments first. So I decided, since it was a little easier to hand sew on each individual block, I would do some of the embellishments before I put it together. Anything that wouldn't be in the way. So what I did is I put together, I made little marks over here. So let's talk about the embellishments first. Um, I I hand sewed a few of the little buttons on just to get them done so that I wouldn't have to do them later. But there's a few of them that are going to be real close to like the edges. Like for instance, this little guy, he's got a big flower that goes up here. So I didn't sew like a few of the buttons on that were going to be too close to the edges where I would be sewing. So I decided to do those later. But I did do a few of the got a few of the buttons sewn on, so I was going to show you what I did. I did sew the B button on the brim of the hat block. So I put this button because it's way over here and it's not going to cause any problems. And then the B button on the swish of the May Your Troubles block. Okay, so I put that, and I knew that wouldn't be in my way, so I did those. And then I did the buttons on the little gnome. The one little gnome had to have the little boot buttons on the bottom, so I went ahead and sewed the little boot buttons on the bottom of his legs. I did also, just so you know, take a little bit of, here's the back, so you can kind of see how I did it. But I put a little piece, a little drop of hot glue under on the top of the boot here. These bigger buttons have a tendency to want to wobble a lot, so I put a little bit of hot glue on the top of the on the back part of the boot here, so that his little feet would hang better. So they seem to hang better that way. Okay, so I did those. And then I also sewed the little buttons on the little gnome's noses. So I've got all three of the little gnome's noses put on. I didn't figure those would get in my way to do the assembly. And let's see, he goes over here. Here's another one. So I got all three of the little gnome's noses on. So I just kind of sewed a few of the things on that would not be in my way, but would be easier maybe just to hold one block in my hand. And so the other one that I really wanted to do was to sew the 14 yellow buttons on the top of the cauldron in the rainbow block. Now this is a little close, but these buttons are pretty small, so I should be okay. So I wanted to get this one done before I had it all together because I thought it'd be easier to get them sewed on. These are really hard to sew on with the sewing machine too, and sometimes like these buttons here, I might actually sew on with the sewing machine because these are bigger and these are much easier to sew on. So we may actually use the sewing machine to sew these four on, but they were going to be too close to the seams, so I thought I'd wait till later to do those. Okay, so here's my cauldron with all the little buttons on it. So I got that done. That took me a little while to get those done. Okay, now the other thing you want to do is I've got my borders ready. I'm going to trim those down because I haven't got them done. I haven't trimmed those down yet until I get the rest of this put together. But at the end, then when we get ready to put the back on, right before the very end, I will show, oh, we're also going to do this ribbon shamrock. I thought we could do that together on camera. So that way we know how to do that. And then the other thing I wanted to tell you is I prefer a three-piece back for the back. And I had a kit, so I had like a half a yard, which is not quite enough to do the three-piece back, but I happened to have a half a yard, plus there was another piece to do the borders, and there was enough to do the third piece of my backing. So you really need a yard. So if you're going to do the three-piece back, you kind of need a yard of fabric, okay? Or a yard and a fat quarter. That's what I ended up having, was like a yard and a fat quarter. So you're going to cut two pieces that are like 10 inches by 17 and one piece that's 28 by 17 to do the three-piece back. So we'll get to that again in a minute. The original instructions do the two-piece back, and it's really hard to get the pillows in the two-piece backs. So I like these three-piece backs. It's much easier to get the pillows in and out of them. So we'll talk again about that when we're ready to put the back on, okay? All right, so let's get ready, and we're going to start sewing this together. I'm so excited to get it together. So they have it listed in sections, which really helps. That you just do a few few sections, then you put them together. Okay, so we're going to start with section 1, and section 1 is going to be the yellow block that we quilted these, and this yellow block, and then a shamrock block, and then we're going to sew the pot of gold block onto that. So let me get these out of my way here. I'm just trying to get some of these out of my way. Okay, so we're going to sew these together, and we're going to sew pieces of here together and then put it all together in one piece. Okay, and we're going to be using a 1/4 inch seam. So let me get these two together first. I love sewing these together. They're so much fun. The instructions are always very good. They have good pictures when it comes to getting these together in sections. So I'm just going to pin. I like to pin them because I seem like I do better if I pin. So I'm going to pin. You could use the little clover clips if you like those better. Okay, so I'm going to pin those two together. I'm going to be using my Q02 1/4 inch piecing stitch. I have white cotton, my Pima cotton thread in the needle and the bobbin. And I'm going to use my Q02 1/4 inch piecing stitch. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get my needle centered. With the Q02, you're going to be using the J foot, and I'm going to run my fabric right along the edge of the foot. We've talked about this before. I like to piece with my J foot. I find that it goes over things much better. I'm not a real fan of piecing feet. I do use a piecing foot occasionally, but not all the time. Second here, I'm going to move my camera a little bit, see if it'll let me put my hand on the other side of it. Otherwise, it's going to be going out of focus all the time. Okay, so we got these two. And we're going to have to do some pressing, so I'll stop the camera and do some pressing. But let's get these two put together, and then we're going to need this one on here yet. So this one goes on the top here, okay, up here. So we'll put this one together. So I kind of look at the pictures, guys. I don't read the directions very well. I know I should, but I find that their pictures are really good. So when I put these together, I can usually kind of tell how they go together. So we're just going to look at the pictures and go for it. All right. So here's this one. I do like to tie these off since they're kind of thick. You know, we've got these all quilted, and they got a little stabilizer, and they've got some shape flex on them. So we're going to do this one using my 1/4 inch piecing stitch. Tie it off. Okay. Okay, and then we're going to sew together. Let's see. So we're going to sew together a pinwheel and my cool cauldron there. So I've got these. I'm going to have to press these open. So give me a second here. We'll do that in a minute. And let's see. We're going to sew all of these pieces together, and then I got to go press and then come back. Okay, so here's my pinwheel. The pinwheel's going to go on top of the cauldron here. So we'll do that. Now when I do these, when I press these seams open, I find that it works way better to press the seams open. And in fact, I'm going to have to go turn on my ultra heavy duty iron so I can get these seams pressed open. So I'll have to go do that while I've got the camera off. I love my Eurosteam Evolution iron. And it is awesome for doing this kind of stuff because if you want something flat, it will be flat with that iron. That is I love my iron. I have two of them actually. Okay, we're going to tie this off. So there's our cauldron and our our pinwheel. So that's what, but we need to press seams open before we can continue on. Oh, so now we're going to sew Lucky together. Whoops. So here's our Lucky. We have to sew Lucky LU. So let's see, we'll just put these in order. So here's LU. So we're going to put these two together. I'm just looking at the picture. I'm just going to put one pin in this. I think that'll be enough. So we'll sew LU. Get my thread pulled out a little bit there. This is my favorite part of the pillow. I just love sewing them together. They turn out so cool, and it's so fun to watch it come to life with all the pieces. So I'm just doing my 1/4 inch. And I usually kind of tie off on the ends of these so that they stay together well. Okay, so then we're going to do C, will be next. Okay, and I'm just going to sew these all together and then I'll go press them all open. So LUC, okay, make sure I get it the right way. Here we go, LUC, okay. Just going to turn this and put a little pin in the center there. This is my favorite part. I've always loved putting these together. Now this one has a lot of blocks. I have to say, this one has more blocks. This one has almost as many blocks as some of the small quilts do. I was surprised at how many blocks there were when I started working on it. I'm like, wow, because I was kind of splitting up the design, you know, splitting up the videos, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to do 6 videos to get these all done. Okay, so there's LUC, and then let's do K. Okay, let's do K. This one. I'm trying to make sure I got it spelled right for one thing, and also also have them going the right direction so I don't have to rip. You may even get to watch me rip tonight because I do that quite frequently. I am notorious for making mistakes, so when I'm sewing, I spend a lot of time with my seam ripper. And I'm kind of doing a full 1/4 inch on these. I think things seem to fit better together that way. So with these, I normally do, you know, like sometimes I do a scant 1/4 inch by tucking the fabric just under the foot, but these I usually do kind of a full 1/4 inch because then everything seems to fit together better. So there's our LUC, and then we need YK, and then we need Y. So let's get Y, and then I'm going to have to press these before I can go on. So we'll have to do the other 2 pieces later. So I'll come back in a minute after I have pressed. So let's get these done. So I sew together as many of the pieces as I can before I go press, and then I got to go press and then come back and we'll do some more. Okay. This is all section 1. So they do it in about 4 sections, and then just sew the sections together. Lots of little blocks in this one. Okay. There's that. So I got all Lucky sewn together. So we're going to have to wait on the other 2 pieces in that part till we get these pressed open. So here's Lucky. All right. So I'll go press those open in a little bit. Put those down here. And we'll sew those together. And then, oh, we're going to sew our little gnome. Now our gnome has those little feet. I'm going to get some Kimberbell tape here. I'm going to pull up my little feet and tape them up here so I won't get them in my seam here, okay? So we want to, because we're going to sew the brown piece underneath his little tushy here. So, okay, so here's my brown piece, and I'm going to lay this under here. Now we don't want to catch his legs in there, so we have to be careful. Put a couple pins in here, and then I have to go do some pressing, and then we'll come back and finish up these pieces. So I'm going to do a bunch of pressing, and then section 2 has quite a few pieces too. This one I thought had a lot. Okay. Let's get this one done. So I'm just kind of going down the row here. I'm going to be kind of careful that I don't catch his little feet in there. I want to catch the top of his little legs in the seam, so I think I'll be okay. Let's see how we did. So we want his little feet to kind of dangle naturally. I might actually, I was looking at these, I might actually put a little bit of glue on the feet so that they don't dangle all over the place. Oh yeah, we're good. Okay, so we're going to be good. So I'm going to press these open. I'm just going to leave his little legs taped up there like that to keep them out of the way. Okay, so now I'm going to have to go press. So I want to press these open, and I'm going to press these open. I need to press Lucky so we can finish putting these two together, and I'm going to press this one open. Now be careful. Remember, you've got some vinyls, and you've got some mylar and some stuff on here. I am going to be pressing on the back, so it should be okay. But you just be aware that you have vinyls and stuff on here. So if you're pressing on the front, make sure you're using a pressing cloth. I usually press from the back on these things. So I'm going to go get my good iron out, my Eurosteam Evolution iron out. I'm going to get that out to press these open. They're a little bit hard to press open. I found that these work better for me to press them open, not to the side, because of how they are. So I'm going to do that, and then I will be back in a moment, and we'll finish up section 1. Okay, so I got my super duper iron going, my Eurosteam Evolution, and mine's the next generation. I have a new iron, but I love my iron because look how flat those seams are. If you want something flat, it is flat. It's like a boiler iron, so you put water in it, and it has like a little boiler chamber in it, and it has like 50 pounds of pressure when it puts steam out. So it's so awesome when you're doing stuff like this that's a little bit on the thick side, that's hard to, get it flat with a regular steam iron. Okay, so now we need to put together the rest of Lucky here. So I'm going to go ahead and bring my black and white check one. Guess we'll do it this way. So it's going to go along the edge of Lucky. So let's see how Jan did when putting it together, see if they line up. This is always the surprise to see if it's going to line up on the edges. I usually I do pretty well. I'm like I said, I don't piece a lot, but I usually turn out pretty good. I'm a pretty accurate sewer, so it looks like we're going to be pretty good. Okay, we're going to get these, and I'm kind of putting a pin where the little seam allowances are. I'm going to try to keep them as flat as possible, because I'd like to keep those from flipping over on me. But it looks pretty good, because it's matching up. Should be about 10.5 inches long, because as I remember, we cut that 10.5 inches. All right, so I'm going to lay these over here. I usually piece with my embroidery unit on, so I still have my embroidery unit on. I don't like to take it off, so I have to kind of get things in the middle of the embroidery, between the embroidery unit and the needle here. All right, so we're going to do our 1/4 inch seam. All of these are 1/4 inch seams. Make sure I get this all lined up here. There we go. Stop and press these two, but I had to get the Lucky pressed out before I could put on the little pieces here. So just about, then we can put the bottom. I'm going to have to press these open before I can put the bottom on too. So we'll tie this off. Okay. Bring the camera down just a little bit to get it out of the way of my hand. There we go. Okay. So we got that one, and I'm going to have to go press this one open before I can put the little bottom. We have to put this little bottom one on. The little checkered one. I like that, the little plaid. So if you give me just a second, I'll be right back. I'm going to go press this seam open, and here's my Lucky with my little black and white herringbone on it. So got to get that one open before I can put this on the bottom, and then we'll sew these parts together to make section 1. Okay, so I got these pressed open, got them nice and flat. And then we're going to turn this down here, and we're going to put this little piece crossed here, and it should match up with any luck at all. So this was like 4.5 inches. this little block, and then we're going to sew these together, and then I'll press again. So there's a lot of pressing for this part. You got to get your seams nice and pressed flat. So we'll do a lot of pressing for this section. Okay, so we'll do these. Okay, and then we're going to sew our 1/4 inch seam. But I've always liked to piece. I do piece a little bit with a piecing foot, but the piecing feet are a lot shorter than the J foot, and the J foot is it just glides over things better, especially if you're doing thick seams like I'm doing right now, or if you're doing triangular seams. The triangular seams are also can be a problem with the piecing feet because they're so short they don't go over the bumps very well. So I'm gonna have to go press this one open too, and then we're gonna be ready to do the put all these pieces together to make one section. So I'll be right back. I gotta go press again. Okay, all pressed. So we got that section pressed. So now I'm going to do this section with this section. So I'm gonna have to be a little careful. I've got a couple little buttons over here, so I want to be careful of those. I should be okay. So I'm gonna put this section to the lucky section. So hopefully these line up. We'll see. I like to start at the bottom and at the top. And then I can, like, if I need to distribute a little fullness or, assist it a little bit, then I can usually get it filled in nicely. But I am going to put a pin in these little, where the little seams are, because I want to keep those nice and flat. Now, if you have a seam here, like we have a seam here, we're going to have to line up our seams. I just line my seams up. That's why I think it's a little easier when they're so bulky to open the seams, because then when you get to these, it's much easier to get them put together. All right, let's see here. So I got a little bit of fullness on this one. So we're just gonna ease it in a little bit. Put a couple of extra pins in, and that will help. Eased in. It was looking pretty good though. I think it'll be fine. So you always pray that everything lines up when you get ready to put it together. So, and like I said, I kind of do a full 1/4 inch when I'm putting them together, just because then everything seems to go together a little bit better. And also it gives me a little bit more room to iron these seams open, since they're kind of bulky and they're real small. So okay, so there's our lucky. So let's get this one done first. And let's see how we do. I think everything seems to be lining up really well. And we'll put the little gnome on this one, then I can press everything all together. I have to press this bottom part so that I can do the top. So I'm going to go very, very slowly over these are my little magic pins. Do not sew over those big yellow heavy pins. These are so soft. I do sew over these very carefully. They're so soft, they won't damage your machine. It's not good to sew over pins, but I don't do well if I take pins out of intersections like this. I seem to have problems, so I found a pin that is they're very, very sharp. And these are magic pins. They're magic pins, and they are extra fine patchwork pins. So these work extremely well for this purpose. And I use them when I'm piecing too. I find that works better for me. But please do not do this with any other pin. If you have any other pins, do not try this. Take the pins out as you're going. I don't want anybody to have problems with their machine. There we go. All right, so there's that one to lucky. So I think I can put the little gnome guy on, and then I'll have to go press again so I can put the top on, because this little top part up here has to go on right here after everything's all pressed down. So there is lucky, and I didn't hit a whoops, I must have forgot a pin. There we go. I didn't hit my my buttons down here, so that was good. All right, so then we're going to put the little gnome guy on here. Okay, so we got his little feet taped up here. I don't want to hit a foot here. Oh, I know Gigi's going to come help me, so if you see a cat coming up soon at me, sorry guys. Okay, let's take these down so we won't get this. So this is going to go on this side, so this is going to go here. Go back just a little bit so you can see what I'm doing. So we'll get this one pinned on, and we'll sew this one on, and then I can sew. I have to go press all of this open, and then I can put the top on. So it takes a little while to do these. There's a lot of little blocks in this one. Once you get going, it doesn't take long. It's kind of fun. I like putting them together. I'm about to have a helper, so if you see orange feet in the camera, I have a cat helping me. She hears me talking, I think, and she thinks I'm talking to her when I make videos. So she usually shows up at least once or twice in every video. So this is my cat Gigi, or at least her legs. And she likes to help me. Okay, so I got a couple little seams back here. I'll put a couple pins here so that my seams won't flip over on me. You're going to have to move, bud. Come on. Second, I'll get her out of the way because I can't sew with her sitting there. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, so now we're going to sew this one. So make sure I don't get anything. Make sure none of my feet are in the way here. So tape your feet so you don't get your feet in your seam. Knowing me, I would have had my feet stuck in my, sewn into my seam up here. So, okay, so we're going to go down this side with my 1/4 inch seam, Q02. Don't mess up my blocks. Sorry, now she's back up again. I don't want her to mess my blocks up. She likes to rearrange things. She's going to sit down and be good. She likes to sit. I have a wool pressing mat right next to me. She loves that wool pressing mat. So she has tendency to sit there and behave herself. She looks like she's laying an egg right now. She sits funny and then she looks funny while she's sitting there. Okay, so I got this section on. Hopefully we didn't catch a foot. We'll check the feet here. I'm going to press these all open. Oh, cool. Look at there. Isn't that neat? And I didn't even hit the handle, so that's good. And I didn't get any feet in there. So I'm going to press these open, and then we have to put this one has to go on top. This one up here has to go on top. So I'll be right back. I got to go do a little bit more pressing. Okay, I got this whole bottom section done, and now we're getting ready to do the top. So I got to get this one on. This goes on the top here. So let's see if we have to line up a bunch of seams. I don't think so. Just a couple. There's one here and there's one here we have to kind of line up. So we'll see how we do here. So we'll get this seam lined up with the pinwheel seam. So you always have to kind of look at your seams and see where you have to line things up, And there always seems to be a few. They kind of do a lot of the seams kind of offset so you don't have to line up too many, but there's always a few. All right, so this one here. So I'm just going to pull this back, and I want to make sure my seams come up together here. So I'm just going to, if I pull it back, I can see it. And I'll put my pins in and hold all those little seams open. Get it lined up. Okay, and then this one, also I'm going to put some, make sure I got it right side up, I believe so. I have a hard time with that sometimes. All right, so we're going to do this, and oh my gosh, look at there, everything's lining up. That's what you pray for when you start putting this together. First pin in there and the second pin. All right, so now we're going to put this one on, and then we'll move on to section 2. This is looking cool. All right, let's see. Get my 1/4" seam lined up with my foot here. And if you like your piecing foot, just use your piecing foot. I discovered this method, and I knew you could use the piecing stitch, but I never really used it much. But I was doing a quilt that was called, it was a, what was it called? A periwinkle block, and it was like a block that you cut with a template, and it had all these little triangles. And oh my gosh, it was so, everything was on the diagonal. You know, we were sewing triangles together and everything was kind of on the diagonal, but then it also had all these intersections. So like I had these big bulky seams, and I was really struggling with my piecing foot because it was short and it would just kind of slide right off the seam. And that's how I discovered this piecing stitch, and it is so nice because then the foot is so much longer, especially if you're doing triangles and, you know, small pieces of fabric. It's so much longer, so it feeds better than those little short feet do. Okay, so now I'm going to go press this one open for the top, and then we'll move on to section 2. It's going to be a little shorter. Okay, there's the whole thing. It looks great. Doesn't it look cool? It's always amazing how neat they look when you all of a sudden it just kind of comes together. Okay, so let's work on section 2. So this is section 1. I'm going to set it behind my machine here for a minute, and we're going to work on section 2. Now section 2 is going to be the rainbow, and I think my cat is sitting on it, so you'll have to excuse me for a moment so I can get my rainbow blocks. Let's see here. My rainbow and my, oh, here it is. She's not sitting on it. Okay, so we're going to put together a pinwheel. This is one of the big pinwheels, and the rainbow block. So the rainbow block goes like this. So we're going to sew this together on our pinwheel. So, yep, no, my cat's sitting on section 3. I put that there just for her to sit on it. Okay, so we're going to get our, whoop, make sure I got my block right. Yep, okay. So we'll sew these two together, and then there's actually going to be a little block on the end of our, at the end of our geese blocks. So there's another little, there was a couple of those little 2.5-inch squares, so one of them matches the goose block, or the flying geese block. Okay, so we're going to get these two sewn together. So sew together a few, and then I will go press again, and we'll come back and sew them to finish sewing them together. A second, I got to get my tail of my thread under my foot. The cotton thread is very curly, and sometimes in the winter it gets a little static. So I got to make sure it's under my foot or it unthreads constantly. All right, so we're going to sew these two together. Take this one out because this pin's bent. I throw a lot of pins away. These are so soft that they bend very easily. So I'm going to tie that off, and then we're going to sew together the little block on the end of the flying geese here. So let's take these out. So here's these two, so we'll have to press those before I go on. And then this one is going to go this way, and then this little block goes on the end. So let's see, this one goes like this. So we'll sew that one on. We'll have to press that one open, and then these go together, and then we'll keep working on the other part of the section here, and then I'll stop, and then I'll press a little bit, and then I'll come back and we'll put some more together. Okay, so this goes together here. And we're going to go here. Oops. So we'll press that one, and then these next, oh, that looks cool. So there's the flying geese. And then let's see, so then we need to have these two little blocks need to go together like this, to go onto the little horseshoe. So these two are going to go together on top of each other. Like this. Hold my thread again. These all lined up. Take another stitch before I tie it off. And then these will have to be pressed, and then I'll sew this to the horseshoe block. Oops, here. Every now and then I get a little stuck on the corner. There must have been just a little piece, I was on kind of a corner. There we go. Make sure you're in the fabric and drop your needle down before you start sewing, because that's how you get that little eating problem into a zigzag plate. So make sure you drop your needle. You notice I've been dropping my needle before I start, and then you don't get that little eating problem. Okay, so here's these two. So these two go like this, and then we're going to sew it onto this, but I need to press it open first. Okay, so we'll do these two. I'll lay this up here, and then we need to sew these two together and press these so we can put them on the bottom. So I'm going to do this one like this. Like this. Just stab myself with those sharp little pins. Probably going to bleed now. Alright, so we'll do this, and then we'll go press again, and then I'll come back and we'll sew the sections together. Come on. Sometimes you have to just give it a little encouragement. It was upset. These are very thick. So I've noticed that, you know, if I have any problems with anything going through, it's usually because of this, you know, the stuff is so thick with all the batting in there and your stabilizer and everything. So there we go. So I got those done. So I'm going to go press, because I got to press these open here, press this open so I can put this together, and then press these open so I can put this together, and then I'm going to have to press one more time to be able to get everything put together. So that'll be section 2. I'll be right back from I have to go up and press. Okay, I've got them all pressed open. So let's see. We need to sew these two together like this. The geese are flying to the right. So we're going to go like this. And we'll do these first, and we'll press this open so that we can sew everything. We can sew a few pieces together. Then we got another little seam, so I'm going to take my seam and make sure my seam lines up there the best I can. And pin down those little seams that I have pressed open. Okay. And oh my gosh, everything's lining up. That's always so exciting. Make sure everything lines up. And then I've got another little seam here. I'm going to pin those open so that I don't flip them over. They're so thick, sometimes it's better if they can stay open when you go to press them. Okay, I'm having trouble getting them pinned. My pins are so soft, sometimes if they're a little thick, they don't like to go in very well. There we go. Okay. And then, let's see, so that's for that. And then this, let's go ahead and pin this up while we're doing it. This is going to go onto this. So I'm going to flip this over and pin these together. So we'll have to press this open before we put the bottom piece on. So it's just a little process. You just have to watch the pictures and see how things go together. I'm sorry, Gigi, but you know, there's not room for you on here too. Now she thinks she has to sit on my lap. I've been making a lot of videos lately, and I think she gets lonesome because I'm not paying attention. Okay. So we're going to sew these together. This is for on the horseshoe. You may see it. Are you seeing an ear? She got back up on my lap. So now you can see the top of her head. I do apologize for my helper here. If I get her to sit down, she might sit still for a little bit. There we go. You got to have a helper when you're doing this kind of stuff. Does everybody else have helpers when they're sewing? She's always in here with me. And at one time I had 4 cats, and I have this great picture of my 4 cats. My sewing machine sat in front of a window, and they were all sleeping on the like the thing that comes up in the back for the quilting. The quilting, you know, the leaf that comes up in the back. And they were all 4 sleeping in the sun on my sewing machine one day when I was sewing out here. That was pretty funny. I got a picture of them. I've got a really good picture of them. I will never have 4 cats again. Let me tell you, 1 or 2 is okay, but that 4 was like, it was a little bit of a circus around here with that many cats. That's a lot of cats to feed too. Well, my three were about the same age, and then I've got this younger one, and she's the only one left now. I lost my 3 older cats. All right. Got that one done. So now I think I have to go press again, because I'm going to have to press these open in order to sew the next part together. So we're going to do, oh, Gigi, you got your tail on my pins, dear. There you go. Okay. So now I have to go press these open so that I'm ready to do, this goes like this, and then I have to press these open so I can sew this end down, and then I can put all of the rest of it together. Okay, so I got to go do a little more pressing, and I'll be right back again. Okay, so it appears that my video stopped while I was working on section 2, and I didn't realize. So let me walk you through the end of section 2, because I got up to press these open so I could put this piece on. So the last part of section 2 was putting this piece on of this piece, and then you have to sew these 2 pieces together. Okay, so and then I pressed the whole thing down. So I think everybody will understand if I kind of walked you through. I got through. I think maybe the cat touched something when I turned my back and I didn't notice that it was off. So I've also pieced all of section 3. So I'm going to miss that on the video because I don't have another section 3 to do. So I'm just going to walk you through it. I do apologize. Sometimes that happens, that the video, something happens, and it's very easy. There's a button that you can very easily touch, and if it just turns the video off. So anyway, okay. So I put this piece, I had just gotten up, I put this piece on to this piece, and then I sewed this piece on to this half. Okay, so these are the 2 halves, and this is section 2. So that was the end of section 2. Okay, so I'm just going to walk you through section 3 because that's the section that you didn't get any of it. I thought it was happily recording, and guess what? It wasn't. So let's look at these. So I sewed my 3 pinwheels together to put on my hat. So I first did my pinwheels, okay? So I sewed these 3 pinwheels together, and I got up and pressed these down flat on the back, okay? Then I came back. I also then, before I pressed, I also sewed these 2 pieces together right here so that I could put them onto this larger block here. So I sewed these 2 together with my 1/4" seams and these 3, and then I pressed. And then I came back and I sewed my pinwheels on the bottom of my hat, okay? And then I had to press these, and I also pressed or sewed my little gnome and my St. Patrick's Day or my little shamrock together so that I could sew it on this bigger block. So I sewed that together, and I sewed this together, and then I pressed again, and then I sewed my 2 halves together. Okay, so that is section 3, and I apologize that something happened to the video, but I think everybody will understand with me going through it. So sew these 3 together, press, sew these 3 to the top, to the hat, press again. These 2 are together, sewn together, pressed, and then sewn to this piece, press, and then sew the 2 halves together, okay? So again, I apologize that something happened to the video. The cat was trying to sit in my lap, and I wonder if she she got up on my little laptop stand, I think, and I didn't notice. Okay, so we got section 3 done. Here's section 2. We'll just review. So here's our section 2. Okay, and that's where the video stopped, is me working on the end of section 2, and then section 1. Okay, so I'm going to lay those up here, and here's our section 1 that we already did. Okay, so now we're ready for section 4, and section 4 is just a few blocks. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and find my section 4. So we're going to have to get some tape here again to tape our legs up on this little guy, so we won't get his legs sewn in the seams here. So I'm going to take his little legs up here. I think I got everything up through section 2, so I think we'll be okay. Hopefully everybody will be okay. And I do apologize for that, but I can't really do it again because I don't have another section 2 and another section 3. So I think everybody will understand. Okay, so we're going to look at section 4 now, and we're going to sew the little brown piece underneath the little gnome's tush here. So I'm going to get this section together. Okay. Get these pinned together. So hopefully we'll get the end of this all in one video. I'll just splice them together. It will be just fine. Sometimes I've had to do that with things. Sometimes I have to start. I've had that happen before, that I look over and all of a sudden the video just stopped and I don't know why. So, all right, so we're going to sew these two together. Let me get my camera down here a little bit on my way. But I've been having my four-legged helper, and maybe she touched something because she likes to get up on my little laptop table that I use when I'm making videos. And she might have touched something and turned off my video. Okay. All right, there's those. And then we're going to sew, oh, we could just sew the pinwheel on too. So then we can just press once on this one. Make sure I didn't catch his little legs. I think we're good. Okay, and then I'm going to put my pinwheel. Let's make sure I got my orientation right here. So put the pinwheel on here. And this is section 4. And then we're going to start putting all the sections together. So at least you got to see most of it. So I think everybody will understand. If you look at the pictures, they're very good. All right, so we'll get this one sewn together. Start up there on my... There we go. I need to clean my machine because I've noticed that it doesn't like to start at the beginning, and usually that means I have some crud under in my feed dogs. So sometimes they don't go up all the way. So, all right, so there's that. So I'm going to press these open, and then we're going to be ready to put the sections together. I'm so excited. It's coming together here very quickly. I'll be right back. I got to go do some pressing first. All right. So here is the instructions on sewing the whole thing together. So we're going to sew section 2 to the top of section 3. So those were the two we had a little trouble with in the video, but I think everybody will understand. So we're going to sew those together first. So I got to find, here's 2. So this was 2. That's where the video stop is as I was finishing this one up. And then section 3 is here. So we're going to sew these 2 sections together to make one. So we have to do that first. So we're going to sew this together, put these right sides together. Hopefully the video is still going now. I think it is. So, yep, looks like it's going now. So we'll make it through yet. Okay. Put that together. Get down here to the other end. Looks like it's meeting up well, so I think we're gonna have success here. And then we get to put the ends on, and then, oh, and then there's rickrack on the like over the seams on the for the borders. Thought it looked like it'd be cute. Okay, so we'll have to get these pinned down. I thought I've done pretty well. I've done about 12 videos in the last about a week, and everything's gone really smoothly until this one. So that's been pretty good. There's usually something that happens. So I'm sure you'll understand that if sometimes things happen when you're videoing. So, okay. So now we're going to sew these two parts together. So this is section 2 and section 3. And this is on page 19 of the book. So we're going to sew these two together. Section 2 was not, or section 3 wasn't too bad because it didn't have as many blocks in it. So, but you saw most of it, so I'm sure everybody will understand. These sewn together. Then I think it says to sew section 1 to the left of section 2 and 3. So we're going to put section 1 over kind of on the left-hand side. Careful over those pins. Sure my video's still going. It is. Oh my gosh, now I'm going to be paranoid. Okay, so we got this one done. Okay, so we have to go press this open before I can continue on to the other two sections, but then this is the big middle section. So let's show it to you and then I'll go press it open. Right, goes like this. There we go. So I'm going to go press this open. And then we'll be ready to put the left and the right sides on, and we're going to have the whole top put together, and then we'll do the borders. Okay, so I got the center section done. So now we're ready to put section 1 onto, it says to the left of section 2, 3. So this one's going to go over here like this. So we're going to sew this section over here. Oops, I got to get section 4 out of the way. So we'll pin this on. Get my ends lined up here. And before I cut my back, I always have to measure my pillow. So we'll get the whole thing put together and we'll put the rickrack on. And then I'll measure so I'm ready to put the backing on. And then we'll do some embellishments. Okay, so this one's going to have a seam we need to get lined up. So I'm going to line up this seam here. Just flip it back like that. Okay, and line up the ends. Looks like everything's lining up. It's always a plus. You have all these little pieces. There's a lot of seams in here. Could possibly not line up, but looks like we're doing okay. Doing okay. Oops, got one more little seam we need to pin down so it doesn't flip open on me or flip closed. There. Okay, so we'll sew this one. And then we're going to put we got to put the other one on the other side. So that will be section 4. So this is section 1 going on 2 and 3, and then we will add section 4 and press again. Second, I've got a quilt or a block that's not cooperating with me. There we go. All right, so a 1/4 inch seam. Get this one done. Second here, since I still got my embroidery unit on, sometimes I have to rearrange. It likes to catch, and I normally take it off when I'm doing bigger things, but I was just lazy tonight and didn't want to. It's not, you know, this is a big machine, so it doesn't really get in the way until you get something that's starting to get pretty good sized here. All right, so I'm going to carefully go over those pins, keep everything flat. It's like, what is that bump? But it's the little guy's nose. Under my fingers, like, what is that? Okay. These all lined up. A second here, I'm a little off here. There we go. I'm going to turn it over. We'll do section 4, and then I will press, and we'll be ready for the borders. Okay. Let's get these pins out, and then we'll pin on our little guy. We got another little gnome on the other side. So pin 4, it says to do section 4 to section 2, 3. All right, 1, 2, and 3. All right, so we'll, oh my gosh, look at there. Everything's starting to look so neat. And then we'll put this one on this side. Yep, this little guy goes here. So we're going to put this one on this side. And make sure his legs are taped up so I don't get them stuck in the seam. Okay, so with this one we're going to have a seam that we need to line up to. So make sure I get my seam lined up here first. I usually try to do the seams first so that I know everything's kind of lining up where it belongs. So there's one here, and I like to pin right through those seam allowances to hold them back so they stay nice and flat. Okay, and then there's another one right here. So I'm just going to look at my seam, make sure everything's lined up there. You just kind of pull it back and roll it up. It works pretty well. Get them all lined up. Put some pins in there. Oh my gosh! Remember all those blocks laying all over my table? There's none left. All I have left is the borders. Anxious to get this done. This will be so cool. All right, get these pinned on. Let's see, I think I might need a pin down here yet. All right. This one going. Tie off. And then we'll do our pressing and be ready for the borders. Okay, so off we go here. Oops, there's another nose. I don't want to. It's like, what is that bump? It did help to put a few of the embellishments on first early, though. That way they were just, it was just easier to hang on to just one block. So I did do a few of them at least, but there was quite a lot of embellishments on this, especially buttons. I don't like to hand sew very well. So I did those first. I thought, let's just do those right now and get it over with. But I do have to still sew a few on before we put it together. And I might do those with the sewing machine, actually. Because those I think we can do with the sewing machine. All right. So we're gonna get this one done. I gotta make sure my ends are nice and even here. Tie off at the end. And then I'll go press these and we'll be ready to put the borders on. Oh my gosh, this is looking so cool. All right. Get these done. I'll go press and then I will be right back to put on the borders. And then we may have to trim the borders. I left mine long. You know, when I quilted them, I left them long. So we may have to trim them off a little bit. I'll measure and then I may have to trim them. Okay, so it's all pressed out and there's all of the blocks put together. Even though we had a hiccup with the recording, we still got it together. So look at there. It looks so nice. Okay, so now I need to measure. We got to put the borders on. So that's the next step, is attaching the borders. So I'm going to measure my pillow. I got to get my tape measure out here. We're going to measure to see how long they need to be, because I left them a little long when I was quilting them. And it was probably going to be somewhere around 16.5 inches, I would guess, somewhere around there. So let's see here. Measure kind of in the center of the piece so we can see. So let's see here. 16 and, well, it's about 16 3/8 there. So I'm a little shorter than I thought I would be, but let's go up this way and see what this one is. So I kind of like to kind of, yeah, it's about 16 3/8. It's just a little over a quarter. So I think we'll be, yeah, I think it's going to be 1, 2, yeah, I think it's about 16 3/8. So I'm gonna cut my borders to about 16, and it's just a little over a quarter. So yeah, so there's the quarter, and then there's the 1. Yeah, so I think that'll be okay. I think just a little over a quarter, a little over 16 1/4. So it's about an eighth. There's 1/8, 2/8. It's about 3/8. Yeah. So I think we'll be good. So it's about 16 3/8 is what I'm going to cut my borders to, and then I'm going to come back and put them on, and then we'll press those, and then we're going to move on to putting on some more embellishments. All right, so we had our borders all quilted, and I'm going to go ahead and I got them trimmed to 16 3/8. Now you need to measure yours, so don't take my measurement. Yours may be smaller or bigger. So that's why I always leave them just a little long when I'm quilting, first of all, and then also because then I measure my pillow so I know how long they need to be. And I like to measure kind of in the center so that you're measuring kind of in the center of it to get the accurate measurement. And then that way both sides are the same size. All right, so I'm trying to get my little seams that need to be pinned open. And then we will turn this over and do the other side. Just pin them both on at the same time here. Okay. Here's this one. Got to find the top of it. There it is. Okay. Pin this one on. And then I think the next section they have you do, where did I lay my book? There it is. I think the next section they have you do is actually they have you put the rickrack on. So we'll put the rickrack on I think next, and then we'll go on to some of the other embellishments that I don't already have on. So, and then put the back on. So I've got my back already over there ready to go, but I just haven't, I needed to trim it down after I knew how wide my pillow was, because we'll also have to, I usually cut them like 17 by 28 for the center section, and then 2 sections that are 17 by 10, because I like to do the 3 section backings like some of the newer pillows have, because I have a hard time getting the pillow forms in and out of the 2-piece backs. So I have them ready over there cut, but I need to trim them down a little bit because they're going to be a little, I think I set them at 17, so we'll need to cut them down about 1/2 inch or so. All right, so there's that one. All right, this up and we'll sew on our borders. Put this down a little bit so it's under my arm a little easier. I've learned to sew with the camera under my arm. Works pretty well. I just have to have it in the right spot so that it doesn't get caught on my shoulder or on my, I should say on my wrist, because otherwise I'm always wonking it with my hand. So I just have to get it in the right spot. So still doing my 1/4 inch seam. I must have been pretty accurate. Everything's fitting together nicely. I think it was technically supposed to be 16.5 inches, but mine was 16 3/8, so it was about 1/8 of an inch off. So that's kind of normal for me to be with these, is to be about 1/8 of an inch off. So, all right, so get these all lined up. Got to press these out, and then we'll work on the rickrack. And got to do some more buttons. A few more buttons to put on. Okay, I'm going to put those on before I put the backing on, just because it will be easier, because then I can use the sewing machine to sew them on. I don't like to sew by hand. Now, some of these I did by hand just because of the way they were put on. Those little tiny buttons are very hard to sew on with the machine. So I am going to sew some of these bigger ones on with the machine. Makes it easier with the larger buttons. So we'll do a little sewing. If you haven't sewn buttons on with your machine, you'll see sewing some buttons on. Hopefully the camera and everything's working okay. All right. This way, yeah, I've made a lot of videos this last couple weeks, and I've gotten along pretty well. So only have one little mistake that wasn't bad. Okay. This is gonna be so cute. I think I think I said earlier in one of the other videos, I think I got this kit maybe 3 or 4 years ago. It was right when it came out when I got it, and I just never had time to do it. And I thought, this is the year I'm going to do this. And I thought I might as well video it so that everybody else can have some help putting it together. Because there's not a lot of, there's not as many instructions with this one, because it doesn't have any quilting instructions or anything. So I just cut that way I could help you with some of that quilting stuff. That's usually the questions I get, is how do you know what to do for the quilting and all that when there's no information about it. And that, the older designs didn't have any quilting information, but you can sure do it. We did it with this one, didn't we? Okay, so now I'm going to I got to go press these open, okay, and then we'll be ready to do the rickrack. Okay, so I've got my borders all pressed down, and the next step is going to be to put the rickrack. So the rickrack's going to go over that seam there, and I switched over to some black Pima cotton thread, and I like to do a little glue to help me with this kind of stuff instead of pinning it down, because it's kind of narrow. So I usually use a little glue stick. So let's see if this will work for me. Take my fabric glue stick. I like those Soline glue sticks, and I'm just going to go down along the seam here with the glue. Don't let it get too big. And then I'm just going to glue my rickrack down. I'm just going to put a little over the edge there, and we'll just go right down over the glue. Press it down, and then I'll just go down keep going down. And you can pin it too if that works better for you. Whoops, I got some tape here. I don't want to get sewn into my seam there. Okay. And I'm just going to go right down the center of the rickrack, the center of the seam there. Just keep gluing it down. But this works better for me because then I don't have a bunch of pins to stop and take out and stuff like that. And sometimes it's a little bulky, so it's hard to get my little thin pins in something like this. So a little fabric glue stick works really great for this. So I'm just going down over the seams. And my glue will dry clear, so if it shows just a little bit, it probably won't. And we're just going to take a straight stitch down with black thread then down this. Rickrack. Okay, so let's see how we did. Hopefully it looks straight. I did the best I could. Okay, so let's see here. Trim this off. I'm just going to leave just a little bit at the end. Hopefully we have enough to get down the other side too. Should. Okay, so we got this one. I think I'm just going to do one at a time, so in case my glue decides it's not going to be cooperative tonight. So we will just sew this one down first. So I'm just going to go right down the center. So the trick with this is you kind of have to get yourself centered And I'm going to go to my Q01 and put my needle in the center here. And I'm just going to sew down the center. I am going to put my glasses on because it's black. So I'm going to go ahead and put my glasses on. I'm just going to sew right down the center of this rickrack, trying not to sew off of it. And I suppose you could go, follow the rickrack if you wanted to, but it seems like a lot of stitching to me. So I'm just trying to stay right down the middle of it. This is a little easier rickrack to hit because it's a little wider. Down the middle. I've got it caught on my edge of my table. So that fabric glue stick looks pretty slick, so then we can just concentrate on where we're going instead of having to pull the pins out. Okay, there is my first rickrack sew. It doesn't really tell you how to do it, it just says to machine stitch one large rickrack piece on top of the side border seam, repeat on other side. So it doesn't really tell you how to do it, so that's how we did it. Okay, so let's turn it over and we'll do the other side. We'll glue it down because that seemed to work pretty well. Let's see here. Okay. Get my glue stick back up here. Just kind of go down the seam. And let's see here. There we go. Stick it down. Try to keep it right on the middle of the seam if you can. I love embellishments. Sometimes they take a long time to put on though. Some of them, like I have to say that putting the embellishments, all these little buttons over here, did take me a little while. I did that in advance, so you didn't have to sit here watching me struggle to sew on 14 buttons. I am not very good at hand sewing. So I did that off the camera. I think you can figure that out. Just look at the picture. That's what I did, is looked at the picture to kind of see how they go on. So, all right. It's a little bit bulky right there. So with the edge of that rainbow. Okay. Get that pressed down. Move on down. So it looks like I need a little more glue. Move on down the seam here. This is pretty good size rickrack. I think they have, I don't know if they have their rickrack anymore. They had a package that had 3 different sizes in it. It was really nice, but I think maybe it's discontinued now. I still have some of it, and it had one of these bigger ones like this in it. I think they had 3 colors. So so you might have to buy rickrack if you, the embellishment kit for this, and I think I talked about that in the first video, is kind of nice because then all of the stuff is all in there and you don't have to go running around trying to find all these little pieces and the buttons and all that stuff. So I like the embellishment kits because they really make things go a little faster when you're trying to put them together. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and go down here and try to get middle. I got my needle in the needle position, which is Q01. And then we're going to sew down the middle of this one. Just try to stay in the middle best you can. So when I first started doing these pillows, this was before they had the quilting designs. And so I would quilt these after the fact with my design center on my Luminaire, or IQ Designer if you have a baby lock. And that also works very well because you can kind of custom quilt it. It does take maybe a little longer, but I did quite a few pieces like that, and it works beautifully. I still do the quilts that way. I prefer the quilts done that way because then I can quilt through the backing. So we'll probably do a quilt like this sometime a little later. I've got a couple of the quilt kits I want to do. I'd like to do red, white, and bloom, and I'd like to do, oh, the spring showers one. I'd like to do that too. I've got a couple of the quilts I really want to do. Okay, so there is that piece of rickrack sewn on. I'll trim this off just a little bit so it doesn't get in my way. Okay, there we go. There's the rickrack. Yay, got the rickrack sewn on. That looks good. Okay, so now I think we're ready for some more embellishments. So let's see here what it says for embellishments. So I'll mark off my embellishments I've gotten. So it says hand sew the red flower button to, that's the second one, and I hadn't done that yet. So hand sew the red flower button to the flower stem on Gnome 1. So Gnome 1 is the little guy up here that had the first feet on that we did. So let me get my pencil out of the way. So he has put his little legs down here. They're over his head. Okay, and so he's going to have a button. He's going to have one of the spring buttons here, and it says to put the white button on him. So let me take some of these buttons out here. Package. So we're going to have the red button on him, and so I noticed that it was pretty close to the seam, so I knew I wasn't going to be able to do this without doing it after I sewed it together. So this way we can actually sew these on with the sewing machine. So if you've never sewn buttons on with the machine, let me just set my machine up to do that. I'm going to take the black thread out now. I think we're done with that. We'll put the white thread back in, and I'll show you how to sew a button on with the sewing machine. It's kind of neat. It's a good way to do it. I can do these bigger buttons this way. It is very hard with the little ones. The foot doesn't work very well with the little teeny tiny buttons, and it's just so hard for them to stay put. They move around. So I do like to do the bigger ones this way. And we're going to put a different foot on our machine. And let's see. Oh, here's my bobbin. I'm going to put my my white Pima cotton back in. Just so the buttons on. Oops, something's stuck here. There we go. Okay, let's put that back on. Let me grab my foot. So you need I just call it the sew the buttons on foot, but it's the M. The letter M is in Mary foot. And it's this little, some of them are white with the M on it, and some of them are kind of clear with little blue tips on it. So it depends on the machine you have. So this one comes with the white one. So I'm going to take this off and put this one on. And sometimes with these bigger flowers, or so this little flower button, so there's a couple different ways you can do this. If you want it to be looser, you push this thing forward, and if you want it to be tighter against the pillow, which I do, I'm going to pull it back. And then these two little dots right here are where the holes in the button are. So did you know that most button holes are the same distance apart? I didn't know that until I started sewing buttons on this way. So not all, but you know, most. So sometimes I just put the button in there and then put my foot on because I find that it's easier for me to get the button in there. Okay. With the foot off of the machine. Okay, so now we need a different stitch to do this. So there's a special stitch to sew the buttons on. And it's going to be in your buttonholes, which is on the 4 tab on just the regular sewing stitches. Okay, so here's that, and then it's going to be down here towards, on mine it's at 423. Okay, and it tells you to put the M foot on. So basically you're just doing a bar tack. And I don't know if you heard it or not, but it lowered my feed dogs, so the feed dogs won't move while I'm trying to put my buttons on. Okay, so I'm going to raise this up so I can bring my pillow in here. We're going to see where our, oops, I guess I did move my button. I usually do pretty good not moving the buttons, but I moved it a little bit. There we go. So he's going to go on here. This one's going to go on here, this little guy. So we want to put it on the stem about right. It looks about right. So we'll drop our press her foot, make sure our little lines, our little polka dots are lined up again here. I think that'll be about right. Okay, put my foot down. Now, the one thing that I never use my hand wheel except when I'm putting buttons on, because I want to make sure that I'm not going to hit the button. So I just kind of go across a couple of times just to make sure that I've got it set up and I'm good. So I'm going to raise my needle and I'm going to press forward 23 again so that it'll start from the beginning. Hopefully. There we go. Okay. So I've got it set so that it's going to start from the beginning. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just start slowly sewing, and it's going to go back and forth quite a few times, and then it's going to tie off. And see, it just tied off, and then it stops. And then I'm going to cut off. And then we're going to have to pull this way to get our button off. And there is our button. The first one's sewn on. Now I am going to do that with these large buttons. What I've found is that they do this little number, you know, they like to move. So before we get done, we get ready to put the back on, we'll put just a little drop of hot glue underneath that button just to hold it in place. Okay. All right, so let's do another one. Let's see here. The next one is, I'm just marking them off, that I haven't done. I already did the B button on here and the B button on this block. I already did that. And then I also did, yeah, so those two B buttons. Then hand sew the watering can button to the hand of Gnome 2. So Gnome 2 is the little, oh, it's the little guy down here. So we're gonna move around down here. And we're gonna put the watering can on him. All right, so let's get the watering can button. That's also kind of a big button. Now we may have to slide it around because the buttonholes are the opposite way. So we want our watering can to kind of go like this. Okay, so we're going to have to tip it over this way. So we're going to have to flip this. Okay, so we can kind of see where we want. And I'll definitely put a little bit of glue under this one. So we're just going to kind of get it in his hand. Somewhere in that area. There's kind of a big bump there, so I'm going to move it back so that it's not, not sewing on the bump. Okay, so I think that'll work good. So let's slide this into our foot like this. And get the little dots lined up, and then we'll get him organized where we want him. I think he'll look pretty good right in there. So we'll do that. Put the foot down. Okay, so I'm going to take my hand wheel and I'm going to check to make sure that I don't hit my button. I think, and okay, all right, so yes, okay, so we're good. Okay, so I'm going to hit my 423 again. Okay, so I'm back to 423, and it's going to start at the beginning. So I'm just going to go ahead and tie off. See if my thread will cooperate with me. I may have, oh, no, it didn't unthread. So it's going to go back and forth quite a few times, and then it's going to tie off. There we go, it's tied off. I'm going to cut, and another button is sewn on, so I'm going to pull towards me. There we go. There's my little watering can. So he definitely needs a little bit of glue. All right, so then the next one says to, see, so there's the watering can. Sew the frog button sitting next to Gnome 3. So the Gnome 3 is the little dude up here. So we need to sew his little, he needs to have a little frog's friend sitting next to him up here. So I think he's going to have a flower also. All right, so we're going to get our little frog. Where'd my little frog go? Oh, here he is. Okay, so here's my little frog. Oh, see his button, his little holes are the other way too, so I'll have to flip this around. Okay, so we'll put our little frog in. I think I want him to kind of sit like right in here next to my little guy. Okay, so we're going to have to, we have to put him in this way. Yep. Raise this up and slide him into the foot. See if I can get him lined up. Line up the holes with the little red dots. Okay, but I gotta flip my pillow around if I can get it in here. There we go. So I want him to kind of sit next to my little guy. He's going to kind of sit on the seam right there. Okay. So let's make sure he's lined up with the holes. He kind of moved on me a little bit. And then we'll make sure, put the foot down. Okay. And I'm going to make sure that he's lined. See, now see, he's not lined up. So I would have broken my needle if I didn't. That's why I always check with my hand wheel before I try to sew these. Okay, we're good. Okay, we got it. I'm going to go back to 423. I'm going to hit it again. So I'm starting at the beginning. I'm going to tie off. Okay. And then make sure. And then I'm going to slowly sew back and forth. And then it is going to tie off. There we go. One more time. There we go. It's going to tie off. And then I'm going to cut. And we've got our little frog sewn on. Pull forward. Get him out of there, hopefully. Well, second here we got a leg back here. There we go. There it comes. His legs are back there, so they were kind of holding him in. Okay, so we got our little frog. So he's going to need a little bit of glue too. These big buttons like to kind of move around. So, all right. So then I think we have one more to do, and this one says to hand sew the frog button. Okay, we did that. Hand sew the purple flower button to the flower stem on Gnome 3. So he also has a flower in his hand. So let's pull this around this way. I think we can, this one, whoops, up in here. Got legs in the way. Okay, so here's the flower stem. So we're going to put the purple button up there. Get the purple button. And look, no buttons. They used all the buttons. Okay, so here's the purple button. And we're going to put this purple button in the foot. Get my little dots lined up, and then I'm going to come forward on the stem. So see, it's going to kind of be like on the rickrack just a little bit. So it looks good. Okay. So then I'm going to turn my hand wheel, make sure I've got my thread so that it won't unthread on me. Okay. I'm just going to use my hand wheel to make sure that whoopsie, I would have broken a needle. I'm just a little off. Okay. I'm always careful with buttons. And I don't want to break my button because sometimes the buttons will break too. Okay, so that looks good. This one looks good. Okay. All right, I think we're going to be good. So I'm going to hit my 423 again. So I'm back at the beginning of it. I'm going to use my little polka dot button here to tie off. Okay. And then I'm going to get this down here so you can see, and then I'm going to slowly sew back and forth to sew my button on. It's going to go around, it's going to go back and forth quite a few times, then tie off. Okay, and then I'm going to hit this cutter and pull forward. And there is my button. Yay! But we're going to put a little hot glue on these because I know they'll want to twist. They like to twist. That's what they do. Okay, so I got my little glue gun here ready to go. So we'll glue our buttons real quick. Just going to put a little bit of hot glue on the back of this button just to hold it in place. Don't need very much, but just enough to kind of keep it from sliding around on us. So I always have to do that with these big buttons, and I did that on his legs. Remember I told you at the beginning of the video, and I know you were still able to see me there, that I did glue his little legs on also. So let's pull his little legs apart here. Okay, so I did glue I put a little glue up here around the top of the button so that his little button feet wouldn't slide around. So let's put a little glue underneath the little frog's head. And it's just because they're kind of, you know, the holes are in there, but they're kind of lopsided. So we'll put a little glue under his head so that it keeps him from moving around. And then we'll go down. And I think the little bees are okay because they're so small. I noticed they felt really tight. So I think they'll be fine. So let me see here. I'm going to take this foot off and get it out of my way because it's kind of long. And then we can slide up here. Because I think the little bees are okay. They weren't very big and they were really tight feeling. But this one I know needs to be glued down. So I'm going to put some glue up underneath the flowers so that it stays straight. Otherwise it's going to rock all over the place. There we go. And I might even glue like the little guy's feet. I'm not sure. Maybe I'll leave them loose. I'm not sure yet. Haven't decided. Because I don't think it says anything about the feet. Okay, so there's that one. And then let's go over here to this. Got one more button here. Oh, yeah, the other red flowers. Let's go over here and get this one glued on. All right, so I'm just going to put a little glue back here so that it doesn't rock on me. Okay. And these are such little buttons over here that I don't have to worry about those. So, but I think there's one more thing to do. We need to make a shamrock to put on either a shamrock or I think it's no, it's not a four-leaf clover. I think it's a shamrock. So we're going to put that on up here. So I have to go look at the directions and look at what I need to cut for that. So I'll be right back. And there's a shamrock that goes on this one, and it's going to be made out of ribbon. Okay, so here's the little ribbon shamrock. I've never made one of these before, so let's see what we have to do. So we have to have three 5-inch pieces of ribbon. So they gave you ribbon. I cut them into 3 5-inch pieces. And I noticed that there was a 15th button and it goes on the shamrock. All right, so this says to fold the ribbon in half, right sides together, glue or hand sew center of ribbon together at the fold. Well, you know, I don't like to hand sew very well, so let's just try sewing it together with the sewing machine. So see if I can do it. We'll just sew a little teeny tiny little seam in here. I'm going to make sure I land right on my ribbon. Let's see, whoops, I don't know if we'll be able to do it. It's grosgrain, so it may not let us. So we may have to glue it. Let's see. May end up gluing it. Let's see, I bet we'll have to glue it. Yeah, I think we're going to have to glue it because what they want is this little look here. So give me a second. I'm trying to decide if I'm going to, I don't think hot glue is going to be the best choice for this. I think the best choice will be my fabric tack. So I need to go grab my fabric tack glue because it's a fabric glue. So if you give me, and it dries also quite quickly. So we'll put a little bit of fabric tack in there. And I will be right back because it's out in the other room. I have to go get it. Okay, so I told you the wrong name. It's my Fabric Fusion. Sorry, I use this for when I put my my clasps in my clasp purses, and it works quite well. So I'm going to put just a little bit of glue. It has a real tiny tip on it too. I cleaned out the nozzle. Should work. So I'm just going to put a little bit of glue right in that fold. And then we're going to fold it with the right sides together. I'm just going to hold it for a minute and see if it will take. Except that I'm going to have a cat that's going to try to help me, so she needs to go to the floor. Sorry, Gigi. Okay. And this dries clear, so you may see it just a little bit at first. Now, I don't know if it's going to stick. We may end up having to, I like glue, but you know, maybe the hot glue will work. Should we try it? I usually use wet glue on stuff like this, but because sometimes hot glue doesn't work. Let's try it. I don't want to have to. I don't have to sew it unless I have to. We'll put a little bit of hot glue in here and see if it works. Can't use very much. Let's see if we can get it to work. So I'm going to fold it up. So I've never made one of these before, so I'm learning with you. Okay, so let's see. I usually use wet glue when I'm doing this kind of stuff. Okay, that looks okay. And that other glue, even though it shows just a little bit right now, will actually glue, it'll dry clear because it's still kind of wet, so it'll dry clear. All right, so let's try another one. That seemed to work. I'm going to fold this in half, and then we're going to put a little glue in the center. Just make a fold, and then I'll bring my little glue gun over. I try to avoid hand sewing if I can. Okay, so let's see if this works. Okay. Get it. Fold it back in half in the glue. There. And try not to burn yourself, because it hurt. But the hot glue dries faster. So let's see, that looks okay. So it kind of goes like this. Then, so you're going to make it like this. It's going to kind of look like this when it's done. That's cool. So I think that looks pretty good. I think the hot glue would have, I thought about just using hot glue, but I wasn't sure. You don't know. That looks cool. Okay, so let's do the other one. So I think this is going to work. So fold it in half with the right sides together. I've made their ribbon flowers. They're really, really fun to do. I did the May Kimberbell Cutie, and they have the little flowers, the little ribbon flowers on that, and they're really easy to make. These are a little bit more complicated because you have to do some more gluing. Okay, so then I'll make my little center mark and just put a little glue in here. Okay. Fold it back in half. So I would recommend the hot glue. It worked. Just don't burn yourself. I just about burned myself again, but just be careful. Don't put too much in there. Okay, so then it says pull the ends down to form a heart shape, overlapping ends with both right sides facing up. Okay, so in other words, you're going to pull it down like this. Whoops, get the hot glue off of there. You're going to pull it down, and then we'll glue this. We're going to open it up, and we're going to pull it down, and we're going to put the glue, we're going to put the ends like this. So let's put a little drop of glue in the center. Put a little drop of glue right in here. Oops. And then bring this side down, and then we're going to put them together like this to make it look like a heart. Okay. Like that. Okay, so there's one. We'll do all three of them. It worked. We're doing okay. So let's put a little bit of glue on this one. Okay. And then, whoops, stay up there, glue gun. Bring it around, and then we're going to glue it together like that. I'm getting better with the glue gun. I use it quite a bit on these pillows because I don't like to hand sew, but this one had so many little buttons. There's really no, they don't glue well. They don't hot glue well because they're so small that they don't get enough glue on the back of them, then they come off. All right, so there's that one, and then we've got to do this one. Okay, so I'll put a little bit of glue down here. Bring it around. Okay. Squeeze it together. Looks like I'm gonna put my glasses on. I've got a couple little ends that need to be trimmed off here. Trim these little ends off so they don't show. There we go. Just that one. Just a little bit end showing here. There we go. Oops, almost lost one. There, okay. And then it says, repeat with the two additional ones, which we did, and then says stack the ribbon hearts, glue or hand sew together, attach a button center. Okay, so then you stack them together like this. So they're going to kind of go together. One's going to go here. One's going to go here. I think they kind of have them straight, so like this. And then there's one that's going to go like this. stack them together like that. Okay, and then we're going to put a button in there. Isn't that pretty? That's going to be pretty. Okay, so let's see if we can get, let's put one in the center. We'll put a little dot of glue here in the middle. Put another one on top. So this one kind of goes like this. Like that. Get them all lined up. And then this one's going to go on the other side. So put another little dot of glue there. So yeah, so the hot glue does work. I had a notion just to try that, but sometimes when I'm working with this little stuff, it's really hard with hot glue. So this goes like this. Did I get it stacked up okay? I think I did. Did I get it? Okay, got a little extra glue in here. Second, I got it on my fingernail. You always have to get the little pieces off. One of these flipped on me, so I got a little glue up here. It'll come off. Okay, so there's our, oh my gosh, isn't that cute? Turned out very cute. Okay, and then you put the little button in the center. So then I've got the extra little button here. We'll put the little button in the center like that. And that I will glue on. I'm not going to sew it on. That one's big enough that I should be able to get some glue in there and it'll stay on. Alright, like that. So there's our little ribbon shamrock. And then this one goes on, doesn't say where it goes, but I know it goes on the top of this little block here that has all the flowers on it. Okay, so we'll get that glued on up here. Okay, so let's bring the pillow down and let me get my glue gun out of the way here for a minute. And we'll bring this down. And then we're going to be ready to put the back on. Yay! I'm so excited. So I really thought maybe the wet glue would work, but boy, it just didn't like that grosgrain ribbon too well. So the hot glue seems to work. You might have to clean it up a little bit, but once it kind of hardens, then you can kind of go in and clean it up a little bit. Trim this little ribbon piece off. Okay, so now let me get this so we can put it on the pillow. It's on the hat where all the flowers are. So it's right here. We're going to put it right here on the pillow. Right there. So we'll just glue that one on too, and then I'll let it set and we'll work with it. When I'm all done, I'll work with it a little bit, but it's going to glue on right there. All right, let me get my glue gun again, and we'll give it a little glue on the back. So we're going to put some right here. I'm going to give a little bit more of a generous helping here. Okay, and then I'm going to lay it down at the center of it. And this one needs to flip over yet, but it will. There. Isn't that cute? Very cute. I like that. So it's just going to sit right there. On the pillow. Look at there. So we got our ribbon shamrock. Got a little extra glue on there that I didn't need. Okay. So there we go. Alright. So we got that on. Okay. So the next step is going to be, I'm going to measure my length again just to make sure that I have my backs cut correctly. And I'm going to hem my backs. And then we're going to put the back on and we'll be almost done. We're almost done. Okay, so I'm just going to check. I think it was 16 3/8. So I just need to trim my backs down just a little bit. They were just a little bit long. I always cut them at about 17, but I usually have to trim them down. So yes, 16 3/8. Okay. So I'll trim my backs down, and then I'm going to hem them, and then I'll come on and we'll put the back on. I'll show you how to do that 3-piece back. Okay, so I've got my backs ready, and I'm doing a 3-piece back like most of the newer pillows are done. So I have my two pieces that are 10 inches by my 16 3/8. And like I said, make sure you measure your own pillow because mine might be different. And I've got those pieces I'm going to put on first, and they go out on the outside edge. I have hemmed the inside edge. I've turned it over quarter and another quarter. And then I am going to pin these on the two outside edges um, with my hemmed edge towards the inside of the pillow. So I'm just going to pin these on. It's hard to pin on the sewing machine when it's so big. So then I'm going to go up here and get this side, and then I'll show you how to put the middle back. You put the middle part, the long part in last. So we're going to put these two ends on. Get them all lined up. Looks like I'm pretty good. There's kind of a bumpy spot right there where that little gnome is, so otherwise they look like the size is correct. So I'm doing well with the size, I think. So I'll pin this on to both sides. I'll do the other side. I'll turn the camera off for a minute while I do the other side. I have to get this all flipped around, so I want to pull off my little shamrock that we've worked so hard to make. So I'll be right back. I'll get the other side pinned on, and then I'll show you how to do the center. Okay, so when we put the big centerpiece on, I folded my pillow in half lengthwise and put a pin here so I knew where the center on the top and the bottom was. And then I did the same thing for my fabric back. So we want to line this up with the centers as best we can so that it's evenly centered or evenly spaced on the pillow top. So I'm going to line up the pins first, and then I'm going to just work my way out and pin this down. And then we will sew it together. It's an envelope back, but it's a 3-piece envelope back. And these are so much easier to get the pillows in and out. So you'll notice that most of the new pillows are done this way. The older ones were done with 2-piece backs, and they are very difficult to get in and out because you have to stuff it like down this big long tube, and they're so big. So this is so much easier. So I've been making all of mine this way. Okay, let me move this pin over a little bit. Okay, we'll do this side. And then we're just going to sew all the way around. I think some of you have done these before, so but I like this 3-piece back. I started doing these, the first time I ever did these was when I did Twilight Boulevard. And they did it, I think they did it mostly because of the light pack. That one was the first pillow they did with the lights. But it really works better, I think, because of the pillow itself. That the pillows are long and skinny, the pillow forms, and this is so much easier to get it in and out. So I'm just gonna keep doing them all this 3-piece back. So all right, so I'm gonna go ahead and do the other side. I'll turn the camera off for a moment while I do the other side, and then we'll come back and we'll sew our pillow together. Okay, so we're ready to make our envelope back. Now, when I do these envelope backs, I have discovered, I have been doing these for a while, and I've had a little trouble that where they overlap, like right here, they would always rip every time I put the pillow in and out. So I've learned that what I do is I'm going to go back to my Q02, which is my piecing stitch. So I need my 1/4 inch seam, and I'm going to do a full 1/4 inch seam. So I'm just going to make sure I can just barely see, and I'm going to tie this off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew over this. This is where the overlap is. It's about 3 inches or so, and I'm going to sew over this. And then when I get to the other pin, I'm going to back up over it with a back stitch slowly. And then I'm going to go back over it a third time because I found that if I do that, everything stays, it doesn't rip at those intersections because there was a lot of stress there, and it was always, the pillows were always ripping open on me, especially these large ones. So I have always done that back stitch, and it seems to work quite well. So I'm going to go up to the corner. I've got my pivot feature on, so if you don't use your pivot feature, try your pivot feature. Oh, but actually it turned off. I like it because then what it does is it raises the foot, so I'll show you at the next corner. Mine had turned off. Don't know why. Maybe it was because I did buttons. Sometimes it turns off when you do buttonholes. It turns it off automatically. Or are you sew buttons on? Okay, so now we're going to go down this side. Second here, I've got a cat in the way. She's blocking the pillow from moving. So I'm going to zip down this side. My 1/4 inch seam. I've got my Q02 back up again. Okay. Oh my gosh, this is going to look so cool. I'm really anxious to see it done. So we'll get to the corner, and the corner, when I go to the corner, you can see my foot's going up, so that's the pivot feature. So it's just a button right here. It looks like a little foot with a needle down through it, and when you touch that, the pivot feature turns on, and then it will raise the foot without you having to touch a bunch of buttons. And I really like it. It's a very handy tool. I use it a lot. Okay, so now we're getting close to that other junction, so we're going to do our little triple stitch over that. We're going to back up over it. Take out the pins as I'm going here. I may have to trim those little the little bit of rickrack that's showing off. Okay, so we're back to this section. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to sew over it. Okay, to the other pin, so because the other piece of it's right here. And then I'm going to back up over that intersection. And I thought about using like a triple stitch here, but this does the trick, and then I don't have to switch stitches and stuff. There we go. And then I'm going to go back over it again. So this really makes it stronger, especially if you're using cotton threads, because cotton threads are not as strong as polyester threads. So I've noticed that they come apart easier, the threads break if you put lots of stress on them. And you know, jamming that great big pillow form in there puts some stress on the pillow, on the seams. So oops, got a little carried away. I was looking at the camera, so I guess I'll have to go back here and fix that, won't I? You got to see me veer off. I was looking at the camera, make sure it was still running. I don't know what happened to the camera earlier. That was really weird. I know my friend Lynn, who does some of the classes with me, said the same thing, that hers has done that. Like, it just stopped, and she doesn't know why it stopped, but it did. So mine must have done it tonight. So for some reason, it decided it didn't want to go anymore. All right. So we're going to pull this pin out. Getting around here, making sure I'm all lined up here. I think we got all the embellishments on. Okay, so this is another one of those overlaps, so we're going to go over it. Okay, and then I'm going to get ready, and I'm going to put the reverse button on. I'm going to reverse back over it. You just have to kind of keep it straight. Just do it slowly, and then I'm going to sew back over it. That seems to really do the trick when it comes to these junctions. They seem to work better that way. All right. Making progress here. And then what you do is we're going to just turn the ends right side out, and we'll leave the other part. We're going to turn it like through the middle section, and then it's so easy then to pull the pillow in because you can grab the pillow from both sides and pull it into the center. It just makes life much easier when it comes to getting these pillow forms in. All right, getting just about done here. Oops, second, I'm stuck on something. Like I said, I didn't take my embroidery unit off, so when it gets big like this, it makes it a little harder to sew. I usually do, but I started sewing and I thought, oh, I didn't take my embroidery unit off, so it's just going to have to stay on. I take it off when I'm doing large items because they catch. Mostly what it does is it catches on the back of my table back here. That's the hardest part. It's not so much the embroidery unit as that, because it goes down in a hole. There's a hole back here, so it goes down into the hole. All right. Just about ready to go around the last corner, and then we'll go over that last little piece that we need to triple stitch over. Okay, flip it over. And we're going to go down the side. Okay, so we're going to get close to, oops, we're not quite there yet. Got to get close to the overlap. But these overlap, I made the center from the original pillow that I did. The backing wasn't long enough, the centerpiece wasn't long enough, so it wanted the gap open. What they're doing is they were trying to keep you to only have to get a half a yard of fabric instead of a yard. But if you get, okay, here's our little spot again. We're going to go over this, then we're going to back over it. But it takes like a half a yard plus a fat quarter. So when I had this kit, there was like a fat quarter of this green that was for your borders. And so I had enough out of that piece to make my other 10-inch by 17-inch section. So I was lucky on this one. I had that enough fabric in the kit. So what I do when I make these is I just buy a yard of fabric for the backing, and then I know I have enough. Or if you have a yard, if you have your half yard, and then you have like a if you have a fat quarter of the same fabric, that'll take care of the rest of it. Oops, forgot a pin back here. Meant to pull it out, but I missed it. All right, just about to the end. Now the one thing I'm not going to do on the video is I'm not going to put the pillow in the pillow form because I haven't gotten my pillow form done, and it's going to take me a while to do that, and I'm getting tired. I usually make these videos in the evening, and it's almost 10 o'clock, so it's time for me to go watch a little TV before I go to work tomorrow. So I'll make the pillow, I'll take pictures of my own pillow and put it in the, like when I upload these videos, I'll put a picture of my own pillow, but I'm not going to put it, I'll just turn it right side out so you can see it in the end of the video, but I won't have my pillow form in it until I take a picture probably tomorrow. But I am getting tired, so it's time to quit for the night before I start making lots of mistakes. So I'm going to tie this off because I'll start making mistakes pretty soon. I've had a busy day. This is my day. This is a Monday. I'm off on Mondays, but I usually have appointments, and I have to work at my father's house. So I was working there today, and I took things to Goodwill, and I took things, I had to pick things up and put them away at my house, and I had to get groceries, you know, the normal day off stuff. So all right, so I'm going to take all my pins out, make sure all they're done, and I'm going to trim off these little pieces of rickrack so they won't stick out. Let's see here, got another one over here, and we're done. I'm so excited to get this done, so I'll make a pillow form tomorrow and take pictures for you. And I'll put the pictures in when I upload the video, there's always a picture that shows up on the start page of the video, and it'll be my pillow in my pillow form. And I will talk about the pillow form here in a minute too. before we end, but I wanted to show you my grandma's little tricks. So what I'm going to do, get this out of the way here, put the pins out of the way. Okay, so the first step of this is you have to take the big piece, and I'm just going to grab the other end. I'm going to put my whole arm through it. I'm going to pull the whole thing through the back. So that's the first thing I'm going to do. So normally what I do when I finish my pillows is I leave them like this until I'm ready to put the pillow form in, because then what I do is you lay it over like this and you can stuff the pillow form in here and then you pull the ends over. But I was going to show you Grandma's little trick about doing your corners, okay? So to get them nice, and I'm not going to trim these. Don't trim through your corners because you will put a hole in it. So I'm going to take my first finger, I'm going to pull this down to the seam allowance, and I'm going to push in, and I'm going to make, and I just left it all in there, all that batting and everything, okay? And I'm just going to push this through, and it'll make a nice pointy corner. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing here. Do this one, pull down to the seam allowance, push into the seam allowance, and just hold it with my thumb, and I'm going to flip it right side out. Okay, so then what I do is I will finish those with my Floriani precision turning tool, and that I did not trim through those corners, because if you trim them, you will poke a hole. No matter how careful you are, you always poke a hole. So there's my beautiful corners, and I'm going to have to do a little pressing and stuff, but let's do the other ones, then you can see the whole pillow. And I will take pictures and show you my finished pillow with the pillow form, and I'll do that tomorrow. So this is I'm going to pull down to the seam allowance, push down to the seam allowance, so you make a corner, and then I'm going to flip it right side out. We'll do the last corner, same thing. Okay, this is one of the best tricks because you don't go through your corners. Grandma taught me all kinds of cool little things like that. All right. But it did, on this pillow, it was nice to be able to do some of the embellishments before I put it together. Actually, we did all of them. Some pillows I don't like to do that because if they have hanging things, I want the pillow form inside of them so that I don't have anything pulling. So nothing was hanging on this one that was going to pull if my pillow form was in there and then it made it pull. So, oh my gosh, look at there. It's all done. Let me pull this back just a little bit so you can see the whole thing. So here's our beautiful rickrack and all of our quilting on the borders. And whoops, something just went on the floor, a piece of rickrack. And here's the center section. I just love the little shamrock with the ribbon. And here's the little guy with his little feet. And here's the other little gnome down here he doesn't have feet, it's just the top of him. And then this one, here he is with his little feet. So I don't know, I might end up actually gluing these down just so that they'll stay put and they won't flop around, because we're doing a lot of flopping. So I'll wait till I'll decide that when I put the pillow form in. But that's the next step, is to put your pillow form in. But there is the Luck of the Gnome. Isn't that a beautiful pillow? I'm so excited to get this done. This is something I've wanted to do for a long time, and I love these pillows with all the little blocks in them, and they have so much interest and so many things going on. So this has been really fun. I hope you enjoyed making this Luck of the Gnome pillow with me. And I'm so sorry about the video earlier, but it still worked out. I'm sure everybody will be fine. If you have questions, you can certainly contact me through YouTube and through Facebook. But I think everybody will understand how to do that little section that I missed. But that's what happens when I do this, is I'm learning, and we got to learn to make the shamrock ribbon together. So anyway, thank you so much for joining me for Luck of the Gnome, and I will take pictures of my pillow, and he'll be at the pillow will be at the at Shield Sewing Center in Iowa City. Probably as of tomorrow, I'll make the pillow form tomorrow, and I'll leave it at the store so everybody can see it. So if you're in the area and would like to see the pillow. So thank you so much, and thank you for joining me, and I will see you in the next video. I haven't decided what I'm going to do next. Come join me on Facebook. Sew Along with Jan is my Facebook page. Come join me on YouTube. My YouTube channel is Sew Along with Jan. Subscribe, come and join the groups, and subscribe to my channel, and we can make some more fun projects like this together. So thanks everybody. Have a good day.